Welcome to the NFP Podcast, where we explore the empowering world of natural family planning. I'm Amy Smith. Join me and my co-host Emily Appledorn each week. Together, we're here to dive deep into the science, the stories, and the spirituality behind NFP. Every week, we push back against the free love culture and advocate for a culture of responsible love, where intentionality and respect are at the forefront of family planning. Join us as we discuss everything from the practicalities of charting and fertility awareness to the profound impact NFP can have on relationships and communities. Whether you're new to NFP or a seasoned pro, our podcast is your go-to resource for honest conversations, expert insights, and real-life experiences. So grab a friend, settle in, and get ready to be inspired. This is the NFP Podcast.
Today, Emily and I welcome back Christina Valenzuela. She's the owner and creative director of Pearl and Thistle, where she offers a unique blend of theology and science to bring better lifelong body literacy to Catholics. She's the author of a new book released this past spring, an app from our Sunday Visitor, entitled The Language of Your Body, Embracing God's Design for Your Cycle. Christina has been a certified instructor in the Boston Crosscheck method of natural family planning since 2013. She's provided menstrual cycle, fertility, and NFP programming for dioceses, campus ministries, and parishes all around the country. She holds an undergraduate degree in philosophy and theology from the University of Notre Dame, where she earned the Gertrude Austin Marty Award for outstanding service in church and community in combination with academic excellence. She received a master's in theological studies from the Harvard Divinity School and lives with her husband and their 4 children, expecting another, outside of Boston. Please join us in welcoming Christina Valenzuela back to the NFP Podcast. Welcome back to the podcast, guys.
Hi, everyone.
Today, Emily and I get to have on a repeat guest. Christina Valenzuela from Pearl and Thistle is with us. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you, ladies. I'm so excited to be back.
I know. We're excited to have you. So Christina popped up on my radar because I follow her on Instagram, and I saw that she had what I thought was like a hard copy book out about boys and teaching boys about the menstrual cycle. And I was super intrigued. So I emailed her, and she said it was a PDF ebook. So she sent it to me very graciously and said I could look it over. And anyway, I read it, and I wanted to have her back on to share all the good work she's doing. Even though she's pregnant, she just keeps cranking things out. So Christina, tell us a little bit about what inspired this book. And I'm going to, I'll drop an image of it in here so people can see what it looks like. But it's a PDF ebook she has available on her website. Yep. And it's geared towards boys. So tell us a little bit about kind of what inspired it and what's in it. And we'll kind of walk through it.
Yeah, so this book came sort of as a response to moms who, so for anybody who's not familiar, I have a cycle prep program, which teaches girls all about periods. And so that's accessible as a video course that you can do online at home with your daughters. And I've had a number of moms ask me, would it be appropriate to share some of these videos with my son as well so that he can kind of get an understanding of what goes on with the menstrual cycle and kind of just start developing some understanding of female body literacy. And, I've always told them, yeah, actually, a few of these videos, like I wouldn't do the whole thing with them, but, you could pick and choose a few of the videos out of there. So I decided basically to make this book as a sort of compendium to that cycle prep program. So those videos that I had suggested that parents use with their boys are kind of pulled out, those concepts are pulled out in this book and then put in the context of a general conversation for boys about puberty, and then bringing it home more to the concept of like, as we grow and change, the language of our body grows and changes. And ultimately, what is this for? It's about being a gift. And there's lots of different ways that girls and boys live out this aspect of gift as we grow and change and turn into adults. So it started with kind of like moms asking about the videos, pulling out those concepts and then wrapping them up in a kind of a bigger picture so that parents can sit down with their boys and start having these conversations.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me because as a mom of boys myself, I wouldn't think I would first want to start with them. Like I want to teach them about their bodies, about what they go through with puberty. And then, and then as we start to talk about the complementarity of man and woman, then to bring in kind of, and this is how the girl's body works. So I think you do a great job in that, in the book though, with that. So you start out in the first chapter with made in God's image. And I thought the language you use is just really, really great. Talking about this language of gift, which is very, Catholic theology, the body, that we are
Very
made.
JP2. Yep.
Very JP2. I love it. Yeah. and beautiful. And just, it makes, it brings, I think, to life the idea that we're made in God's image and likeness. Like, what does that mean? What does that mean? Who is God? Who are we as being made in his image? And this idea of gift is, to be who we were created to be, so that we can be for another, not just for ourselves. That's always about the other. It's very Trinitarian, right? God and the Father and their love and the Holy Spirit, and just this beautiful communal aspect to our lives. So, but the way you present it though is so friendly. And I thought at the same time, Emily, I'm curious if you would agree, not watered down even though too. Like, you use good language. The language you use is really well, it's really well done. So she starts off, right, Christina, you start off with this idea of the body as a gift, talking about transition as this period of, maturation, and our bodies are going from being little bodies to being more adult bodies. And the reason they're going to be a little more, and this part I really loved a lot, the reason they're growing into adult bodies is for vocation. It's because God has a mission for you. It's not just because he thought that would be a good idea. It's like for a very specific reason. And so you need to learn the language of your body. And like, here's kind of the why, right? As you're going forward in the text, it's like, we need to learn this language of our body so that you can more fully live out your vocation, whether that be consecrated religious, priest, and or a married person. So yeah, I thought the first chapter was I thought it was really, really well done, the way you lead into it.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And a lot of that is the idea kind of comes from this guiding document that was written in 1995. I would love to see an update if anybody from the Vatican is listening. The Pontifical Council for the Family wrote a wonderful document called Truth and Meaning of Human Sexuality, which walks through different stages of education with our kids. And it points out that all education about sexuality should be ordered towards vocation, right? And so I really wanted to draw out that particular aspect, not because your 8-year-old boy is necessarily sitting there going, oh, do I want to be a priest? Some of them are, but just to kind of plant this idea that like there's a change coming up for both you and the girls in your lives, and all of it has a purpose and all of it has a plan. And you don't have to have that figured out right now. You just need to know that there is a plan, right? And so the hope was to ground some of the anxiety that comes with changes, the questions that come with changes, in this positive idea that like there's a purpose for all this. And as you said, it's not just because God thought this would be like a fun idea, but like that there is a purpose and a design in it.
And we'll link to the encyclical, and we'll also link to our episodes. But because of you, Christina, we had never heard of that encyclical. And so we took time on the podcast. We read through the whole encyclical in different sections, and we just had like a discussion about it because we found it was so intriguing. It was so well, we loved it. It was so great.
I don't know how we didn't know about it.
Yeah,
it was so unbelievable.
It's not something that we often refer to, but it is this gem that's there that offers us some really good guiding principles.
Yeah, especially as educators. Like it provides all the guidance. I mean, this was something I was so interested in doing. And I kind of, as we were reading through it, I'm like, oh, I wish I had read this before, because it really gives some good specific details, like what to include at certain stages of development. So anyway, I'll link that as well. So okay, so that's chapter 1, God's image. And then you move into growing up and talking about puberty. The vocabulary you use is really great. And this is where I say it's not watered down, in that like she actually uses, the real terms that you need to use when you're talking about going through puberty. But this transition that happens for boys, so you start out with boys and what they go through, and then moving into girls and talking about how now we're going to, girls are different. Like there are distinct differences here. You're both going through something. Puberty is what you're going through. But the way that that's manifesting, similar in hormone changes, but different in anatomy, physiology, and the extent of those hormone changes. So anything you want to say about the chapter 2, growing up?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. the dilemma with presenting puberty education materials, right, is the fact that boys and girls don't go through puberty together, right? That
Oh,
boys will go through puberty on average about 2 to 3 years later than the girls will. And so part of what we need to do is, even if our boys are not showing signs of puberty, what I really wanted to do is to give them that language and that context of like what's coming up for you, kind of a general overview. So parents don't get too excited. I don't have a whole, it's not a comprehensive puberty guide for boys. It just kind of points towards some of the changes
yeah.
that are going to happen. And then what it does is it makes a shift to say the girls in your life are already probably going through changes. And so let's talk about those in a little more detail, because you're going to observe those changes in the girls before you're going to see this in your own body. And so that's why I really wanted to make sure that we had a booklet that would understand kind of the menstrual cycle and these general changes, so that boys who are in fourth or fifth grade, who may not be on the threshold of puberty for themselves, but who may be seeing these changes in the girls in their class or in their big sisters or whatever, will have that understanding and will have that language. So that chapter on the puberty, right, is really just a general overview to kind of give them the context for then what we go into in depth in the following sections.
I'm glad you brought that up, the different timelines. That was
Yeah.
something I thought was very intriguing and really a great point to say, like, hey, this is what you're going through and this is what she's going through, and it's not going to be at the same time. And here's what you might be observing in her. And I do like, and we'll talk about this as we go on, but like how you can be, help her in that and encourage her in that and be, an active participant within community with her, whether that's at school or at home.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you move into chapter 3, which is where we talk about the menstrual cycles. And you use two terms that I'd like for you to share, or expressions, I guess, terms. Culture of care. I was so curious, is that something that you just kind of came up with? Because I've never heard that before. And then the story of the kingdom, we can go into what that is, but I really liked your language there too.
Yeah, so the story of the kingdom and then the culture of care are two big components of the cycle prep program that I teach girls.
Okay.
So the story of the kingdom is the way that I teach girls to kind of put together a narrative of all the complex hormones that are going through a menstrual cycle, right? So in cycle prep, we don't just talk about periods, but we talk about the four key hormones and what they're doing in the body to lead up to a period, to give it all context so they understand what's going on. The culture of care takes that base knowledge. So now we understand what these hormones are doing, how they work differently in different parts of the cycle. And now we kind of turn towards observation and say, okay, well, what effect does that have for me? How could that impact my energy or my moods? And how do I care for my body? How do I respond to the way that my body is communicating to me that it might need different things? And then how do we take those skills of care and extend them to the other people in our lives? So it really is a call to, in the context of cycle prep, it's for girls to create a culture of care for themselves within their school communities, within their parish, within their home lives. It's also for parents to remember that we're creating a culture of care in the home. And the basic idea is, we just respond to what the body tells us that it needs, and we respect what other people's bodies are going through. So when we extend that then to the boys, depending on whether he has big sisters, that's going to look different than whether he's just dealing with classmates. But just making them aware that like girls may need different things at different times, and we can simply be receptive and attentive to respecting that need, especially if she sets any boundaries. That's a little vague. Maybe we could go into more details about that. But the culture of care and the story of the kingdom are both components of that cycle prep program that I really wanted to pull out for the boys.
Yeah, I'd like to hone in a little bit more on the culture of care part, because that's what stood out to me is like, I think it's easier, could be wrong. I think it's easier, while even sometimes still challenging, to make a case as to why we need to be teaching this material to girls, who are going through their, starting their menstrual cycles. I think that challenge of, making a case for why we need to be talking about, especially girls' cycles to boys is a bigger leap right now. And so I think this idea that this culture of care idea I saw it as a very, I mean, kudos to you. Like, what a great invitation, a way to present inviting boys into this world that, yeah, they're going to be seeing in anyway, whether it's at home or at school, and helping them to understand a little bit more,
Yeah.
seeking to understand, even if maybe they're not seeking to understand. It's like, well, but that's what we should be doing for our fellow brothers and sisters in Christ and just in the human race. Like, they're going through something. Well, I want to be understanding. And you use language like we want to be encouraging them. We don't want to be teasing people, right? If
Yeah.
their voice, you talk about the boy's voice is changing. How that wouldn't feel good to have someone tease you for that. Well, it wouldn't feel good for a girl, to be teased for something. And we'll talk about this, I guess, too, when we get to the later on in the text, or maybe it's in this section. But you brought up an example of, if you saw a friend at school and she had like a period stain on her pants or something, that you would want to offer her your sweatshirt or like let her know in a gentle way. I was like, oh my gosh, what school are those kids going to? Because that's where I want to send my. I'm like, where they're treating each other like that. It was just
Right.
so beautiful. Or even the home, right? Where the brothers and sisters are treating each other like that. And
Yeah.
some people might be thinking to themselves, well, that just sounds, out of this world. I'm like, well, in a way, that's kind of how we're called to live, is a little out of this world, be in the world, but not of the world. And yeah, I just really, again, thinking of it as like a mom of boys, like I would love to present it in that way. It just sounds perfect. Like that's the idea of we're a gift to each other and we want to be encouraging one another, respecting the body and not being afraid or grossed out by it. I
Yes.
think that's
Yep.
also another important part. So yeah, any thoughts on anything I said there?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes when it comes to, well, all the time, when it comes to kids, we need to give them explicit permission, sometimes to do things, right? So, it will probably happen in a boy's life where he'll notice that a girl has her period, right? However that comes about. And so saying to them, like, here's what you can do in that minute, right?
Mm.
Like actually telling them, like, here's an idea for you. You can go help her because when we when we think about boys and their reactions to periods, if they don't know what's going on, right? So lack of knowledge breeds anxiety, which in kids can also turn into something to make a joke out of, right? To alleviate tension. And so when we educate the boys and we tell them, actually, this is what's going on, and here's what you can do in that situation, right? I think it's not a far fetch to then say that kids will actually then want to do that rather than turning and making a joke out of it or making the girls feel embarrassed, because at that point they'll feel empowered, they'll feel educated to step in and to help. And then also, I think for me, so in my family, we have two girls as the oldest, and then I have a son. And, they had to share a bathroom. And so once my girls hit a certain age, we had to have a talk about, this is going to be the girls' drawer in the bathroom. And here's the sorts of things that are going to be supplies in there. And you can ask me any questions that you have about those supplies, but like it's very important that you don't play with them, that you don't touch them, and that you let her have her privacy with this particular drawer. And I think there's a lot of families who, again, we just need to explicitly tell our kids, here's what's going on, here's
Right.
the expectation, here's what you can do.
Mhm.
And then the boys will feel a lot more comfortable in general just with this biological process.
It
For sure.
eliminates the confusion, I think,
Yeah.
when you've already given them words to what they're noticing and what they can and can't do. I give you kudos for still allowing them to share a bathroom. I think that's a really good point that you made, because how often, I don't have kids this age, but I'm thinking about nieces and nephews. How often could it be that the mom is like, okay, now we're almost perhaps as like a protection for both the
Mhm.
privacy of the teenage girl and the younger boys. But I actually love how you did that. Because at some point, if he's called to marriage, he's going to be sharing a
That's
bathroom
right.
with a woman.
This
So,
is funny. Yeah, very timely. I actually just had a conversation recently with someone who's going to be relocating, and because her older daughter, one of the reasons why they're making this move to the different house is to have more space so that this older daughter who's getting ready to go through these transitions can have some privacy. And I don't know, fleshing that out, all the things that she meant by that, but let's just say that it sounds a little bit more like oh, that needs to be taken care of over here. And it's this quiet thing that we don't talk about. And sure enough, like, yeah, it's not something we want to like put airs on about and like,
Right.
have tampons just laying around the whole house. But I think the way you described it, Christina, is like bringing everyone into the situation to say, here's what's happening, guys. Okay. Like it is going to be happening. And it's a good thing. It's a great thing. It's a natural thing. It's a healthy thing. And here's how we're going to handle it. And I think, yeah, you're right. I think kids really do respect that kind of direct communication, and it can be done at such age appropriate levels.
Right.
And we had been talking about it quite a bit when I was pregnant with this guy on the podcast, just the questions I was getting from my 9-year-old about everything related to this guy. And he wanted to come to my midwife appointments, and he saw his brother being delivered because I had a home birth with him. And all of these things that he's exposed to, and Emily brought it to my attention. He's like, how unique that's going to be for him growing up and moving forward.
Yeah.
But how non-threatening it was. But that's the environment I grew up in. I grew up in a very like everything we do with our like this body process is totally normal and healthy and good, and needs to be respected and appreciated. So anyway, I just love that can be brought into the conversation with the boys. You did such a great job. You just did such a great job. So, anything, Emily, you want to say about the menstrual cycle part?
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. And she uses great imagery. Again, Christina, I think you just have really good visuals for stuff. So you use great imagery in the story of the kingdom story, but then also just in the actual graphics in the book. The last part is the chapter 4, growing together. So I pulled out 2 quotes that I thought were really great. So in the growing together part, this is one of the quotes I have. Being a boy who understands how all of this all works, who doesn't laugh at it, tease others about it, or acts like it's gross or weird, makes you someone with a very important role in building a culture of care. And when I read that, I was like, that's what I would want for my boys. Like, that's who I want my boys to be, is to not be, to have that same approach to all of this, not to tease others, just not to be grossed out or weird. I think that's actually more. I don't want you to be grossed out or find it weird.
Yeah. And again, I think I wanted to just call those things out, because as much as we want to tell the boys, like, this is what we expect of you, we also want to say, like, this is what we don't want. Right. And so if you start feeling this way, or you start having these questions, like, let's go back and let's learn and let's talk about it a little bit more, rather than leaning into some of those, maybe even peer pressures to treat it a certain way. So I just wanted to call those things out and make sure that we understand that, like, this is the expectation that we have for you, and this is what we want to help you to do. You don't have to do this by yourself, but like, that's why we're sitting down to read this book together.
And it reminds me too, when you, especially saying something like to tease others about it, you think about, they always say like the kids who are bullies, you really have like some sense of insecurity. And I feel like in this case, to what you had said earlier too, when they don't know what's going on, they're going to likely tease about it. Or if they come from an environment where these things are not seen as healthy, normal, natural, then they're going to be weirded out and grossed out by it, and likely cover that up with some type of, teasing or bullying type of behavior, because they don't know how to handle the situation. So I think you do such a good balance of respecting kind of the sacredness of this whole process and of the body, and at the same time giving explicit language and examples for how we can help our kids, kind of grow through this, grow through this process in community, whether it be at home or at school or future spouses. I actually thought, Christina, about this, and I was like, I wonder how many wives contacted Christina and said, it would be great is if my husband like knew all this stuff like way before he ever met me. Because when he met me, we could just, I would know my body, he would know about my body, and we would just be moving right into this vocation and be super easy peasy. So anyway.
Yeah. Now that you're talking about this from like the adult woman's perspective, it's funny because a memory just popped into my head when I was in college. So I was working at a pregnancy resource center for some of my time during college, volunteering there. And the topic of menstrual cycles like come up when you're working with women who may be pregnant, right? And who need cycle education a little bit. And I was in a mixed group. We were talking, young men and women. We were chatting about something that I don't know, pertained to work somehow. And one of the men in that group, he was like, can we just change the topic because periods are like so gross and we should never be talking about this in public. And another one of the women in the group said, you should be a little bit more comfortable with this as a topic because, 1 in 4 women that you encounter in your daily life is on her period, probably.
Mm.
And he goes, what? And she's like, no, I mean, if your period lasts about 7 days, cycle is about 28 days, like 1 in 4 women is on her period, and that's just the reality of women's lives. And he was like, that's disgusting. I can't even think about that. And I was like, what are you going to do when you get married?
Right.
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 You
Yeah.
know? And
Right.
and his response was, well, I'm just not going to think about it. It's not going to be my problem. And
Oh,
this to
gosh.
me was the epitome of, like, in my brain, I filed that away and I was like, this is not the right response.
No, this is not what
We can do better. We can do better.
for sure.
And like conversely, when I met my husband, the night that I met my husband, I had started my period and I was throwing up. I had horrible cramps
Oh,
when I was
gosh.
in college, and it was just what I dealt with at the time. And I wasn't able, I didn't think I was going to be able to go to this party that my friend and I had put together. And she told everybody at the party that I couldn't go because I was on my period. And I still met my husband that night, and he was not grossed out. So I found this out years later that he knew that night I was like bleeding profusely and cramping and had migraines. Like, he knew that.
Oh, Christina.
And he's still like,
And he wasn't turned off.
and he
Yeah.
wasn't turned off by it,
Right.
and so reflecting on these things, right, I can see like 2 extremes in
Right.
my own life, and those 2 examples of like, this is clearly how I don't want my son to grow up. This is not the
Right.
attitude that I want my son to have. I want him to have this attitude of acceptance,
Right.
where he's not grossed out by it, but he takes it for what it is.
Right.
And so that was just a wonderful example to kind of like have in my mind as I was thinking about, how do I want my son to treat women? What I want him to know as he's growing up as a young man.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think I mean, I don't think you say this explicitly in the book, but when I read through it, like I didn't get either that this is it's short. It's a very easy, digestible read. It's not like, okay, boys, and now you need to go and find a girl and chart her cycle. Like,
Right.
it's not like, you're getting like super into the weeds or like making it a bigger deal. I just like, it just kind of normalizes like, hey guys, here's what's going on, gives them the information and then that's it, the end, and go about your day. And now as you're going through life, you'll have these words and this knowledge to put language to what you see and who you're interacting with. So that, yeah, your response can be like, oh, she's on her period. Okay. And then if there's other people around you and they're all acting strange about that, you can look at them like they're strange. Like, why are you guys freaked out by this? This is not a big deal. And then you can be an evangelist and tell them why it's not a big deal. Because it's really not. So yeah, I just really appreciated it. At first, I was intrigued, obviously, because I just love everything you do, Christina. But I was also like, for boys, how is
why
she
do we
going to
need
do this?
that?
Yeah, I'm like, how is she going to do this? Like, this is interesting. And then I read it and I was like, oh, this is great. Not surprising, but it's great. So, Emily, do you have any questions or anything?
Yeah. So context wise, is it the idea that this is the parent going over this book with them? Do you have anybody that has said like, I'd love to teach this in my class? Like, I don't know. I would guess that will come,
Like a
but
Catholic school or something?
yeah. Or even like a youth group, like a boy, like pull the boys aside in a youth group or some, I don't know. Like, I feel like there's probably opportunity there, but I'm sure, it's new. So,
Right.
but I'm guessing the idea, parent.
Yeah. So this book is explicitly written for the parents to sit down and read through their boys. There's parent discussion questions at the back. There's a resource list as well for parents who want to kind of explore more topics or want to think a little bit deeper about, kind of the next conversations that they might have with their boys. So I have that provided for them at the back of the book. But yes, when I was putting this together, I definitely got people who were like, this is great. Can you make a video series about this so that I can share it in my classroom? And I was like, one thing at a time.
Right.
One thing at a time. But yeah, I mean, I think part of what I love to do at Pearl and Thistle is to kind of take a step back and challenge the way that we typically do this education, to think a little bit differently about what's actually age appropriate. What are the questions that our kids are actually asking? What are the times where they're actually encountering these changes? Rather than saying, like, okay, everybody gets puberty education at the exact same time in fourth grade. I'm like, well, that may be more appropriate for the girls than it may be for the boys who aren't going through puberty
Right.
at that time, right? They may need something a little bit later.
Mm.
And so part of this was also just taking a step back and saying, okay, if I'm saying cycle prep is for girls, ideally 9 to 11, but like extending 8 to 12, like what do we have for that same age group for the boys? What would they need? And so this book is just hopefully to answer that question by saying what they need is a general overview of puberty, and then this knowledge that, like, what are the girls going through that they're right next to at this time, rather than kind of presenting them with all of their puberty stuff at this age when they may not particularly need it. So the idea is to let this book simmer for a little while to get some parent feedback, and then maybe to see about if we wanted to turn this into a bigger course, or where this might go from there. But I figured the first step is, like, let's just let parents have this to sit with for a little while and see how it sits with them, and then we'll see where it goes.
And so you said
Beautiful.
age range around 9 to 12 for the boys,
Yeah.
8 to 12.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I think slightly on the younger end of that, maybe, but it also depends on, like, boys, it also depends on maturity, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
every kid is at their own different point of receptivity in terms of being able to sit down and talk with their parents about body stuff. So,
Right.
your kid, your
Right.
kid.
Right. And parents, you need to also know yourself, right? Like something Emily and I always try to encourage is, if there's roadblocks for you being able to have these conversations with your children, like, getting, help you might need, if there's healing or if there's just whatever it is that kind of
Mhm.
can keep you from being the number one teacher in this area or the main resource, kind of working through that so that you can be as comfortable as possible to be the one to present these topics, I think is also really important. Would you agree, Christina?
Oh, absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think what you said about how carefully the language is put together in this book, even if you're a parent who doesn't want to sit down and read with your son, like, you could pick up this book and get an idea of how you might want to word things,
Right.
right? Like, you could use this book as a catalyst for the conversation, the particular conversation you want to have with your own son. Use it as kind of an example if you're feeling like, I don't quite have the language, I'm looking for something. So yeah, again, parents, you can get creative with how you use this. There's no one way to do these talks and these education models. Yeah.
And these questions for discussion are really great, that she has in the back of the book too. So reading through those can also give you some ideas and give you some, I guess, just like, little seeds to be planted. So that way, conversations with kids and these topics come up at the most random times. So
Oh,
you,
absolutely.
right, you're in the car driving somewhere and like kid asks that question. It's like, oh boy, wasn't expecting that one. But you don't want to, make them feel bad for asking the question. So, reading, like she said, like reading through this ahead of time, just kind of getting a base until, and then, but then when they do ask a question, like in my case, I'm like, oh, he asked. And I have to like always, I tell Emily, like, I always have to restrain myself, like how deep, I just need to answer his question. I don't have to go like
Right.
super deep.
Yes.
So, then knowing like how to frame it and kind of like, yeah, jump on that opportunity. They asked, they're thinking about it. Like, let's deliver some good information and some good responses. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I love the discussion questions. I love the list of resources, Christina. Those were also really, really great. Um, yeah, I don't think I have anything else. I just wanted to get you on to talk about this so we could start promoting it some more. Anything else you want to say about the book or yeah.
No, I want to thank you so much for just taking the time to let me chat about it, because it's an aspect, people always ask me with Pearl and Thistle, like, are you going to do a boys puberty program like how you do
Mhm.
cycle prep? And I'm like, well, my expertise really is in the menstrual cycle education, and I don't have expertise in general puberty education, but this was kind of something that felt like, yeah, this is appropriate actually for families that have boys who might not have girls and they want to start this conversation, or for families who do have girls and they need this conversation with their boys because they don't have the luxury of an extra bathroom or whatever it is. At a bare minimum, we can. The idea was to be able to explain this aspect of puberty for the boys in a way that that gives them something that's packaged in a unique way for them. Rather than just saying, like, oh yeah, you can play the girls videos with
Right.
your son. Like, this is explicitly packaged in a way that's designed to contextualize it for them and their bodies and kind of what they're going to be thinking about. So hopefully it'll be a good resource for parents going forward.
Oh, I think so. Yeah. I'd love to hear your thoughts both on this before as we are wrapping up here too. I definitely grew up with I think what my mom would say is like an open door bathroom policy. And when
Mm.
we were little and she was in the bathroom, I don't think it was ever locked, although I'm sure sometimes she wanted to lock the door. So if we went in there and, she was changing a tampon or changing her pad or whatever it was, and granted, we're all girls, but we'd ask her questions and she'd answer our questions. And, no, with no emotion or tone or anything, just very factually. And maybe it's just because I am now just rushing around and I don't always lock the door when I go to the bathroom, but my boys will come in sometimes, especially, if I'm when I was pregnant, when I was postpartum, when you have when I'm on my period and they see in the drawer, the materials and they'll say things and they call it like a mommy, oh, mommy's got her diaper on or something. But they ask those questions and I answer them. I said, this is mommy's body and this is what happens once a month and that's it. And they're like, oh, okay. And they kind of go about their way. But I think just having the more relaxed we can be about talking about this as if it is like no, nothing super exciting. Kind of like it's just, whatever that expression is like, it's just like the sliced bread expression. It's just what it is. We're not going to have any dramatic response to it. I think it really does just set the stage for as they get older, then it creates that environment of like, well, now we can ask questions about it, then questions that may seem silly. But anyway, I just wanted to know what your thoughts were.
Yeah, Emily, do you want to go first?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead.
I think when my kids, like before a certain age, open door policy for moms is almost like the default because
Right.
the toddler has something that they need to come in and they need to bother you, whatever it is. And in that case, yeah, absolutely. I mean, so many conversations. So, being on my period for my boy, it was really interesting to me because the girls were kind of like, oh, what's that? But my boy, and I don't know if this is a universal thing. I won't say that every boy has this reaction, but he was a little more disturbed by the period blood than my girls were. And so for him, I found out when he was a little guy, the most important thing for me to say to him was that, like, it's okay, mommy's not hurt.
Right.
Like, that was the thing he was really concerned about. The girls didn't seem to have that reaction for some reason. But he was really concerned that I was hurt. And so again, just like normalizing in cycle prep, we emphasize too that like period blood is different from the sort of blood that we see when we get hurt. It's a sign that everything has gone right. It's a good, healthy sign. It's not, you're not, they're the mommy is okay, right? And so yeah, definitely open door policy when they're younger to kind of, and that helps plant some of those seeds. I lock the door now because at this point I'm like, well, I would like some privacy. I'm beyond that point, but I'm ready to have a new baby. So, well, I'm going to go back to that open door.
Right. Well, I think too, like moving to that closed door. Emily, I want to hear what you have to say too. Like moving to that closed door, I think, but then it also teaches kind of like that transition. Like, okay, everyone's a little older. Having privacy in this space is a good thing too. What were you going to say, Emily?
Oh, I was just going to say, I grew up, it was open door, but it was more just like I would perceive things in the trash can, but it wasn't ever like I walked in and there was these conversations about it. It was once again, I feel like without the words to describe what's going on, it just causes confusion. And it's really, really easy for that to snowball. And then you're trying to just put together the pieces, like what's really going on. So my little kids, like definitely open door. I think also, I personally love this idea of like, perhaps they don't have like a solid memory of like when they found out about a certain thing. It's just like you're describing it, Amy, like, oh, this is just what happens and blah, blah, blah. So they're not even registering that as like a traumatic event, or anything like that. It's just like, oh, I've known that since I was little, right? Just like the way you describe your childhood. that was just what we did. It's not this big standout moment. And I think that's important personally. Just kind of just exposure, right? Just normal exposure.
Yeah. Oh, this is just so great. I could talk to you forever, Christina. I think it'll also be interesting to see too, as we invite this conversation in, because we might have mentioned it the last time we talked, Christina, but I had done this college level public health elective, and I had a couple boys in there and a couple of the male students that took it. I tell Emily this all the time, but man, they ate this up. They never missed the class. They thought it was so fascinating. And I think it's kind of like, your son responded of like, well, mommy, are you okay? Like that little protector, right? Coming out like, is she okay? Is she going to be okay? I think there's something about this, the complementary, right? How God made us of, innately, without us saying explicitly, but just this innate respect and like awe you find in the other person by learning about who they are as made in God's image, right? It helps us to even worship in a different way. And so anyway, I'm just so curious the subtleties of the impact of this book in that way, Christina, like the things that maybe aren't researchably tangible, in findings, but just that switch in our mentality, which is so needed, right, in our fallen culture of like this, how we view one another and what that can do, that ripple effect for generations. So I'm super excited. I hope everyone can get a copy of it. And so where can we get a copy of it? On your website?
So it's on my website at pearlandthistle.com. Yeah, that's the only place that I have it for now. So I was explaining to Emily that like my MO is usually to let a book kind of percolate for a little while in the electronic form, and then we'll see about getting it into hard copies so that parents could order it that way as well.
Because this would be really cool as like a mom study. I could see this in like mom's small group or like dad's small group. That would be really, really cool. Okay, so in the meantime, I'll link it in the show notes so you can go to her website and get it. How much is it, Christina?
That's a good question. $11?
Okay. Totally manageable then. Great.
I mean,
just give
something like that.
Give up Starbucks for 2 days and you can buy the book. So awesome. Okay. So go to her website. We'll link it in the show notes. And yeah, I think we've covered everything. So if you've got boys between, 8 to 12, somewhere around there, read it. Even if you don't have them at that age yet, you can read it. Or if they're older, still read it. It's never too late. Get good information. So yeah, that's it. Emily, do you have anything else for you?
No, that's great, Christina.
Yeah, Christina, I can't wait to have you back on when you have another baby and do more amazing things, and we can share that with everybody else too. So thanks for all your work. Just check out the links for all the in the show notes for all the resources. So, all right, guys. Well, we'll talk.
That wraps up another episode of the NFP Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you found our discussion enlightening and empowering. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear from you. Please connect with us by sending us an email with your questions and stories to thenfpshow@gmail.com. We'll be back next week with more insights, tips, and heartfelt conversations about natural family planning. Until then, love responsibly.